Okay, hi everyone and welcome. I'm going to kind of give a little introduction and hopefully a few more will get logged on and then we'll get started. Welcome to the webinar Winning Strategies and Best Practices for Government Prospecting. My name is Catherine Walsh and I am with NBDC PTAC and I will be your moderator today. PTAC is part of the Nebraska Business Development Center. We are a statewide program, and the government contracting services we offer include assistance with registration such as SAM and the new beta.sam.gov, assistance with 8A, Hub Zone, women-owned, veteran-owned small business certifications and self-certification, proposal and bid review, and assistance with post-award processes such as debriefs, contract compliance, and invoice submission. So if you would like assistance with any of these topics that I just stated, you can email me at cwalsh@unomaha.edu. As most of you are aware, NBDC has gone virtual for the summer. So we have switched all of our workshops and events to a virtual format, and we've also added some new events. So please visit our eCenter page. The URL can be found right now on your welcome slide. I also want to quickly highlight some of the upcoming virtual workshops and events we have in July and at the end of this month. So on Friday, June 26th, we have a workshop on proposal types and proposal preparation. This workshop is part of our Demystifying Government Contracting series. The workshop will be presented by the President and CEO of Project Solutions, Inc., and will cover how small businesses can decipher the type of solicitations and contracts used by the federal government, how to decode the government solicitations to write a winning proposal, and how to solve the bid equation with strategies to win more bids. We will also have another workshop on the 8A program and certification, which will be presented by the SBA on July 7th. And then we have a webinar on cybersecurity maturity model certification, as well as a webinar on GSA schedule updates and changes, which will be presented by GSA in the middle of July. I also want to highlight a slightly larger virtual event coming up on Wednesday, July 15th. So this event will be part of our agency spotlight series and will feature the University of Nebraska procurement. It's going to be kind of the first event of this kind that we have moved to a virtual format, and we're pretty excited about it. We're going to host a presentation from the university procurement team on how to do business with them, and then we will move to virtual meetup sessions, so using Zoom breakout rooms. Our hope is to allow you all to have discussions in the breakout rooms with the University of Nebraska procurement team members about how they purchase and what special projects are coming up that you might be interested in. We plan to section off these breakout rooms by industry. So if you attended one of our, Greet the Buyers or agency spotlight events in the past in person, we're hoping to move that same event to a virtual format and still allow you that chance to meet with the buyer and discuss upcoming projects and how they purchase and kind of start that initial contact and get in touch with them. You can sign up for that event also through the eCenter, and then we'll have more information coming to you once you sign up about which breakout session and time slot you'll have on that morning. So again, you can find all of these events on our eCenter, or you can email me at cwalsh, WALSH@unomaha.edu. Okay, so let's get started with today's webinar. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please type them into the question box. We'll have time at the end to address everyone's questions. And as that slide said, the PowerPoint slides are available for you to download in your handouts tab. I'd like to introduce now our presenter for this webinar, Josh Frank, the managing partner at RSM Federal. He's an award-winning business coach, professional speaker, and best-selling author. He's nationally recognized as an authority on government sales and business acceleration, and his coaching has helped companies win more than $2 billion in government contracts. So welcome, Josh, and thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning. Yeah, you can still hear my voice, yes?
I can.
Excellent. All righty. So, good morning, everyone. This is, there's about 20 different training sessions that I do throughout any given year. And this is probably one of the most popular. So, I will say this. It's about seeing the forest through the trees. Some of this, most of it shouldn't be rocket science, but I'm hoping that as you go through it, it will help you prioritize. It'll help you not make the same mistakes that a lot of companies make when they go into this market. So let's go ahead and get this going. So she's already given you all the background. I'm with RSM Federal. Every month I support the MBDC with various training sessions on tactics and step-by-step strategies. I've been in the market for a long time. I feel I'm getting old. I'm really getting old. I'm a former Army guy. So for any of you Army folks, HUA, and huge small business advocate. And again, I specialize in tactics and strategies. So before we get going, I want to set the stage. In 2019, there were 14,000 companies that had a GSA schedule. For those of you who don't know, it is simply a contract vehicle. It allows you to sell in certain areas. It's not on the slide, but it's important to note in any given industry. So for all of you, whatever it is you sell, product or service, the odds are no more than 10% of what the government buys, in terms of what you sell, is on schedule. So, when you first register, for those of you, some of you have seen me present before, so I go off on tangents and I go down the rabbit hole. That being said, as soon as you register into SAM, what's one of the first things that happens? You get contacted, you get flooded with emails from all the companies that want you to buy their service to help you win contracts, right? My company is no different. I mean, we don't target SAM for that. But a lot of those are, hey, you need a GSA schedule. Well, personally, I don't recommend you get a GSA schedule for at least 1, if not 2 years after you enter the market. Because if you cannot sell to the government without a schedule, what makes you think you're going to successfully do it with one? It's not magic. And so to prove that point, there were 14,300 companies last year, last time there was data, right? And 68% didn't meet their sales quota. Almost 70%, right? And, so there is so much for that low hanging fruit theory. So, more than, it says almost, more than half of companies with a schedule, GSA schedule, fail to successfully use it. Now, I use this as a microcosm of the overall market, okay? So all these companies that have schedules, right? Of these 14,000, 7,000, 8,000, whatever it is, they're not failing because they don't have good products and services. They couldn't have gotten a schedule without one. In general, there are exceptions, but in general, you have to show you've been in business for a couple of years. You have to show that you've sold commercially. So it's not because of what they sell that they fail. So why do so many of these companies fail on what everyone's being told is this incredibly important contract vehicle? Now, before I answer that question, I'm going to give you another example. There's 2 identical companies, okay? They could be product or service, doesn't matter. The owners have the same education. They go to the same folks for help. They go to all the same webinars, conferences, they go on Amazon, they buy the same books. Everything is the same. And one company wins $3.5 million in government contracts, and the other one doesn't make a penny. So more than half of GSA schedule holders fail to succeed using their schedule. Two identical companies, exact same training and information, and one fails, one succeeds. Why? It's not what you learn. It's how you apply it, okay? This is the foundation for pretty much everything that I do, right? And it's absolutely critical for prospecting and sales. So with that, I'm going to ask you all a question. Why do companies win contracts? Just say it out loud, say it to yourself. The most common that I get are these, right? So when I'm presenting at national events, I get all of these. Hey, Josh, this is why companies win contracts, right? But which one is the most important, right? Most commonly, I hear past performance, I hear relationships, I hear socioeconomic. No, you don't win contracts because you're 8A or woman or service disabled. That's for another day. Those just open doors. But if you get certified, the money's not going to fall off the tree, okay? In fact, most companies that get certified don't win contracts because they don't have basic business strategy. But the number one reason that companies win is their perceived value, their ability to differentiate, their ability to communicate competitive advantage, and their ability to what I call ghosting the weaknesses of their competition, okay? So with all of that to set the stage for this morning, let's set some expectations. Today is going to be basic to intermediate. I do basic to advanced. This one will be up to intermediate. We're going to do about an hour seminar with Q&A. Again, we'll do questions at the end. I'll make sure we have time for that. This is also a lot of information. Almost every training session I give is a ton of information. That is why the slides have been presented to you. That's why this is being recorded. Now, today we're going to cover the budget. We're going to cover acquisition versus pre-acquisition, because that is the number one critical thing we need to focus on when we sell to the government. We're going to talk about how to differentiate your company. We'll talk about who buys what you sell. And then we're going to go into a lot of detail on 20 prospecting methods, of which you've all heard these, okay? Whether it's a nonprofit, a for-profit, a consultant, a mentor, a coach, the company down the street, your colleague in another company, you're going to see all of yours in this matrix. We're going to go through, and I'm going to talk to you about which ones actually work so that you understand how to modify your sales strategy, okay? And then we'll do some Q&A. So let's start with the federal budget, okay? You'll understand why I'm going through this. You've got appropriations, defense. I mean, look at defense. Defense is as much as all the federal agencies combined. Your mandatory programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Don't think for a minute that all those organizations, Health and Human Services, right? HHS, with Center for Medicare, Medicaid Services, etc. They all have requirements for products and services. So don't just look at the appropriated funds, look at the mandatory as well, right? So we're talking over almost $4.5 trillion. And, most of us that are on here, I would assume, are small business. And so you look at the federal budget, skip the sequestration, but you go down, you look at the 23% requirement for small business set-asides, right? Yes, of that 23%, 5% is woman, 5% is minority and socially disadvantaged, or what we know as 8A, right? 3% is service disabled, 3% is hub zone. But bottom line, all of those, it's all a part of that 23%. There's $318 billion available to small business. Correction, 307 billion for 2020 as part of that total $4.4 trillion. Okay. So you may be saying, so what, Josh? Okay, so there's some numbers you've thrown out. Your top priority, excuse me, your top priority is how do you properly engage the market? So don't listen to the folks that are constantly complaining, oh my gosh, it's so hard to get into this market. No, it's not. It can be if you don't have the basic tactics and strategies and you're able to bridge business strategy with government strategy, right? Budget cuts, yeah, they're a big deal. Right now, we don't have to worry about that, right? Republicans are in charge. Normally, the way it works, Republicans are in charge and money just gets thrown everywhere, which is happening now, right? COVID, it just exacerbates that. And so the focus of this webinar is to help educate you so that you're performing the right activities and not wasting time doing things that a lot of companies are doing or being told to do that's not helping them win any contracts, okay? So to reiterate, it's not what you've learned, it's how you apply it. Most of you are business owners that are on today. We have some proposal folks. We also have a good number of business developers and sales professionals. Again, think back to the two identical companies, and it happens every day. They both learn the same things about selling to the federal government. One succeeds and one fails. The one succeeds understands it's how you apply it. So let's begin. Government opportunities don't do what everyone else is doing. The 6 most common challenges that companies face in entering this market is how do you identify who buys what you sell and how do you contact them, okay? Now, I'm going to touch on it briefly, but last month, I think it was last month, or it was the month before, but it was recently, I did this for the Nebraska MBDC, for the PTAC, and it was a step-by-step. How do you identify who buys what you sell? How much do they buy? How often do they buy it, right? Product or service. And let me throw this out because I haven't said it before. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, there was a post I responded to about 3 weeks ago, and I said I'm gonna re-record an entire session on how to find this data using the new beta.sam data bank, what's taking over for FPDS, Federal Procurement Data System. If most of what I just said is Chinese, if you want to identify who buys what you sell and how do you contact them, connect with me on LinkedIn, because in the next week or two, I'm going to record that session and I'm going to put it up for everyone in the world, okay? Second, bidding without information. If all you do, see, I missed it. It says FedBiz Ops. I am going to change it right now. Beyond SAM. All right. Bidding without information. If all you do is go into, whether you're using your bid matching system, you're going straight into SAM, if all you're doing is bidding without having anything other than the information you see on your computer, you are not likely going to be successful. Okay, we'll go into more detail in a moment on that. Bidding without knowing the prospect. Folks, what makes you think that the government is any different than your commercial clients? Right? If you think about it from a commercial perspective, when you're winning contracts on the commercial side, you'll probably scratch your head and go, yeah, I built a relationship with them. I know that, Mike, who I talk to all the time, his wife works for the hospital and he's got 2 kids, and they're 7 and 9, and one's a boy, one's a girl, and the boy loves soccer. If you don't know your prospect, now that's the personal side. The other side of that is, have you gone to the website? Have you looked at their strategy and their vision? Every agency has a vision packet that says, hey, the next 5, 10 years, here's our focus, right? Know your prospect. Bidding without knowing competition. There's a lot of information on your competition out there. You know, anybody that has a GSA schedule, I can see how much they make on it. Any company that has won multiple government contracts, I can look it up. I can even back into it and tell you possibly what their labor rates are. If it's on GSA schedule, I know their labor rates, right? So you want to know your competition. You got to bid, you know, if you bid without doing your upfront work, we'll talk a little bit on that, and not tailoring your marketing collateral. Now, marketing collateral. In the government space, we have what's called a capability statement. Simply, it's a commercial 1-page, 2-page, front back marketing slick. You know, this is my company. This is what we do. This is the value we provide. Well, here's the thing. If all you're doing is using a generic CAPE statement and you just give it to everybody willy-nilly, that's like, you know, cool beans. That's a Midwest phrase. I'm Midwest. So, you know, anytime you have a potential teaming partner, you want them to, you know, you want to get on their team. Don't just give them your generic CAPE statement, tailor it. Tailor it to the specific opportunity you're trying to get on the team for, right? If you have a CAPE statement and you are giving it to a program manager, a CEO, any decision maker, government employee at some agency or military command, you obviously are approaching them because you've seen some opportunities out there. I go to Sam and I say, oh, you know, the Army Material Command for the United States Army under the Department of Defense, in the last 6 months, they've had 3 acquisitions on, let's say it's a type of technology, maybe it's construction, whatever it is, and you go, oh, okay, if you look at all the stuff on our CAPE statement, of the 10 items we say we do, we have that at number 7. Move it to number 1, tailor it for them so that they look at your CAPE statement and go, oh, wow, this is what they do. This is what they're really good at, okay? So these are 6 common challenges, and we're going to go through, I think, most of them today. Now, 80% of companies, so let me be clear. What I'm doing is I'm taking you through common challenges that companies face, how companies, most companies are taught to approach and enter and position within the government space. And then I'm going to walk through how you need to do it. Okay, so it explains how I'm walking through this today. So 80% of companies focus on unqualified opportunities. Okay, if all you do is respond to opportunities on SAM, oop, I can do that. Oop, I can do that. I don't know who the client is, never spoken to them, never been to an industry day, never talked to the small business office, never spoken to a company that already has a contract with that agency, then you're likely focusing on unqualified opportunities. Okay, so you want to target those that align with your strongest offering, obviously. You understand their needs. Okay, we'll be talking about pre-acquisition momentarily, and how the value of your product or services align with what they're looking for. Okay, now I will tell you right now, the majority of you probably don't understand the full value of your product and service. And I'm not going to go into full detail. Today is not a day about value. That's a future webinar. It's in my book. I'll talk that later. But you got to map your value. Okay. You targeting your prospects, right? We'll talk that extensively here later on. Propensity. Okay. Remember that word. Who buys what you sell? How much do they buy? How often do they buy it? Okay. Propensity is what identifies your 3 strategic targets for the calendar year. 3 strategic targets. This may be a slide later on. If it is, I'll just move past it. But your business development strategy needs to be most companies, hybrid approach. There's some companies that'll never prime and they'll just subcontract. but most companies need a hybrid approach. The strategic is those three subordinate elements within whatever agencies or military commands have the highest propensity. Those three are your strategic targets. Those three are the ones where you call the small business office. Those three are the ones that you look for industry days, events, building relationships with those buyers, even if there's no current opportunity on the street. Your tactical sales is SAM, okay? So propensity, you got to know who buys what you sell. Discard all the other shotgun sales, don't work, really successful. And so the typical company, small business that enters the market, this is where their priorities are, okay? And this is coming from having worked with over 10,000 companies, okay? Most focus on SAM, 80%. The RFQ is released, or DIBS, DLA's Internet Bid Board System, for those of you that do product. About 10% teaming, 5 positioning, 5 sources sought. This is where you have got to drive your sales strategy. This has nothing to do with government, folks. This is business 101. It's business strategy. You've got to focus in the pre-acquisition. Pre-acquisition is before an RFQ or RFP is released, okay? So pre-acquisition would be sources sought, okay? It would be draft solicitations. It would be calling the government. It would be having meetings. I have a sneeze coming on, stand by. Excuse me. So pre-acquisition is before the formal acquisition process begins. You need to be spending 80% of your time positioning with your prospects. So in other words, my point is this: get out from behind your computer. Now, it's an interesting dilemma. We're in COVID, right? And so it's hard to, there's no events. I mean, I've had 12 events canceled since this started, but it doesn't mean you can't pick up the phone. Speaking of which, from a strategy perspective, tactics perspective, a lot of people are afraid to get on the phone. Always do phone before you do email. Some folks will say, oh my gosh, Josh, nobody picks up. It's impossible to get a hold of them. May take you 10 tries, right? Don't give up. Use some elbow grease. So you got to focus pre-acquisition. Another point, and this is again to drive you away. It's an interesting statement, but you need to get away from SAM. Okay? We know that only 10% of the opportunities for whatever product or service you sell is in SAM. And you go, well, where the heck are all the others? Well, they just haven't moved into acquisition yet. And when you look at opportunities in SAM and you go, oh, this is exactly what we do. But man, it looks like this was, we say wired. This looks like it was wired for another company. It looks like it was written for another company. And the answer is it probably was. And why? Because those companies spend 80% of their time in what? Right, in pre-acquisition. That's how important. Moving, yes, tactically, you need to be responding to opportunities in SAM. No doubt about it, right? Because you got to have so many, based on your company metrics, you have to have so many opportunities in your pipeline in order to hit a 5-to-1. You know what? For those of you who want to know, I have a pipeline tool, okay? At the end of this, there's an email. Send me an email. The pipeline tool will tell you how many opportunities. based on what you want to make this year, how many opportunities do you need? How many do you need to prime and subcontract? All those pieces, right? Email me, I'll send that to you. But the majority of that is pre-acquisition, okay? So let's move into differentiation, right? Because for me, now I have the nickname of the professor of government sales, but I'm also known as Mr. Value because that's why our folks have won so much. And so you are just another company. This is critical. This may be the most important thing that I say today, other than acquisition versus pre-acquisition. Do not ever differentiate yourself until your teaming partner or the government perceives that you're equal to your competition. A lot of companies, oh, hey, we're the only company on the East Coast that does this. Look at how great we are. We have the best, project management organization or whatever it may be. But when you walk in the door, whether it's a teaming partner or it's a government, okay, you're just another business. And I will guarantee 99.9% of you, there's 100, 1,000 other companies that do what you do, okay? And if you say to me, Josh, no, we've got a process, or we have a technology that is highly unique, nobody else does it, I'm gonna look at your product or service and ask one question. Whether I use your product or service or another company's, can I achieve the same end state that I'm looking for? Because as your prospect, I don't care what you think I need. I am going to tell you what I want, and my end state is X. So for many of you that believe you have a niche product or service, it may be to some extent, but there's probably a lot of other companies that'll get the exact same end state. And so you need to differentiate against that. So this is a tactic that we teach. It is phenomenally strong, okay? And anytime you talk to someone, it could be at a conference and you're shaking hands and somebody goes, hey, Josh, how you doing? What do you do, right? It could be a government prospect. It could be a potential teaming partner. What you say is, hey, you know what? You can look at our website, look at our Cape State, look at all of our marketing material, and we do a dozen types of services, or we sell a dozen types of product lines. But you know what? The reality is we specialize in these 2 or 3, and you say what they are. This is such a breath of fresh air. Such a breath of fresh air, because if you were to say to me, hey, Josh, we're a construction firm, we're a vertical or horizontal, whatever, construction firm, and yeah, we do, you can look at our website and we do, these 6 different areas. But the 1 or 2 that we really specialize in is this and this. And if you're a small business, I'm going to look at you and go, I won't say it, but I'm going to be like, wow, a small company that doesn't think they do everything. And they know what they specialize in. They're realistic. Folks, this has nothing to do with government, okay? This is business strategy and marketing, okay? Now, some of you may say, well, how do you pick the 1 or 2 or 3? And my answer is, it changes every time depending on who I'm talking to. If I have information or business intelligence that says that federal agency, they've released the last 2 or 3 acquisitions have been on one of our 6, I'm going to say we specialize in that one. Okay? So you don't just do this willy-nilly. It's the second time I've used that phrase today. Too much coffee. So, but you need to make yourself equal before you differentiate. Okay? Very important. Now, a lot of folks ask, how do I differentiate? And everybody thinks and everybody does initially. Most of you are going to have the direct, right? Hopefully value versus capability, right? You're going to use your past performance. You're going to say you have a niche, maybe your personnel, your staff. your current customers, right? Your past performance, your staffing approach maybe, or it's your partners having a facility clearance, clear differentiator, right? And so those are direct differentiators. Indirect, man, that is hard, okay? Trust. First time you talk to me, if I'm the government, I don't trust you. I don't care how strong your past performance is. I don't care if you've got 10 contracts with the Department of Commerce. I still don't trust you. Makes no difference to me. I'm a human being. I don't trust you. I don't know you. So building that trust is critical. Another thing, don't hesitate to use the words agility, flexibility, and innovation. Be careful with innovation, but every document comes out of the government talks about the value of small business and how they're more agile and flexible than large. Well, you can use that in your proposals, right? Hyper responsiveness. Large companies have, 10 levels in their chain of command, their management structure, and the government has an issue and it takes a day to finally get somebody on site to do something. Small business, it can be instant, right? Balancing. All right, folks, listen very carefully. Your socioeconomic statuses, being certified, 8A, woman-owned, veteran, service disabled, hub zone, that simply balances you out. You will not win a contract because you're certified, okay? To give you a perfect example, an opportunity comes out, it's for 8A, okay? Or a woman-owned, doesn't matter. Everyone you're competing against has the exact same certification. Therefore, if you cannot communicate your value stronger than the other companies, you lose. Folks, that's why more than 50% of companies certified 8A, more than 50% certified woman or veteran or service disabled, hub, doesn't matter. They don't win contracts. Why? Because they think they've learned everything, but they don't understand how to, say it with me, apply what they've learned. Okay? So don't think for a minute that you're going to be successful in the government because of your socioeconomic status and your certifications. It is a tool. It is a weapon in your arsenal, but you still have to be able to communicate your value. Okay? Let's talk CAPE statement and marketing for a moment. Yes, in the government space, this is your baseline, your one-page marketing slick, right? Yes, you can have it on your website. I've got one on mine. It's generic, sure. Remember, you want to tailor for every meeting you're going to have and tailor for your teaming partners. Now, I am going to give you two recommendations that go against what a lot of people in the market have probably already told you. Number one, use graphical logos. Okay, so as an example, you can look on the right there. You can see the bottom level is all the DoD and federal agencies. Now, many organizations will tell you you cannot use federal logos because the Public Affairs Office, the PAO, has to give you approval to use their logos. And guess what? They're absolutely correct. However, 99% of small businesses use the logos. Why? Well, your CAPE statement, no matter how hard you work on it, if you give it to me, 6 seconds, that's it. I'm not reading every word. I'm not looking at all your metrics and your quantifiable, qualifiable numbers. 6 seconds. The number one thing you want to prove is past performance. Did they open their company yesterday, or have they been around for a while? That initiates some trust, okay? If you don't have any government past performance, then use your commercial logos, okay? Number two, do not take copies to meetings. Now, some of you are raising your eyebrows because you've been told nonstop, keep a deck of these, 20 of them with you when you go to conferences. you know, when you give out your business card, give out your CAPE statement. That is such a bad idea. Now, that doesn't mean when a small business office says, send it to me, you don't say, well, you know, we have a corporate policy. We don't provide our CAPE statement until we've spoken. You're not going to be a schmuck. But here's the thing. I want you to imagine for a moment that we're at a conference, okay, or we're on the phone talking. And, you know, you're talking to me, you find out that, or I find out from you, you're right now working on underground utility and structures. There's a lot of wet utilities, dry utilities. If you look on the right, that's number 5, right? Under services. Well, guess what? When I get off the phone with you, I'm going to move that to the top of services. And on the upper left, I'm going to say, hey, MSR Solutions provides underground utility and structure service. I'm going to tailor it. It's really difficult to give it out generically and then come back later and go, oh, you know, hey, here's another copy of my CAPE statement. You need to tailor. Think like a business professional. Don't just give stuff out to give it out. Okay. Now, if you can't communicate your value, and all you're saying is these are the products or services we provide, this is what you're saying. Hey, we're an awesome company, and you've got a requirement to do 3% with us. You should put us on your team, or you should give us a contract. That sounds sort of obnoxious. And that's what a lot of us do. So I want you to think more as a business professional than a government sales, you know, guy or gal, okay? That's how important communicating value is, CAPE statement, website, etc. So, you know, if somebody, if I'm the government and I go, hey, Janet, you know, nice to meet you. What do you do? Don't tell me what you sell. Let me say that again. Don't just tell me what you sell. Don't tell me, hi, you know, we're a 8A woman-owned small business that does, we sell garden hoses. We're a technology company. We're a logistics firm. Don't simply tell me that, because there are 1,000 companies that just came to me before you and said the exact same thing, okay? It's not what you sell. It is not your socioeconomic status. It's the value that your products and services provide. Now, let me give you a real world example to really drive this home. What happens when you focus on value? So I was working with a company in Kansas. This was a couple years ago. They were minority 8A. They were woman owned. They were tribal, Native American as well. And they had a meeting. They spent 3 months getting a meeting with the #1 contracting officer for Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Okay. And she said, Josh, how do I approach this? And I said, well, walk in with your 45-second pitch and tell them about the value you provide. You know, we're in the business of doing X, Y, Z, and our value is, ABC. Do not talk about being small. Do not talk about, having any set asides. And so, the contracting officer and they spoke for about 30 minutes, and he looked at her and he said, okay, I know what you do. I'm assuming you're a small business, right? Now, she asked me, do I send my CAPE statement? And I said, no, don't send your capability statement before the meeting. You don't know how you need to position with this prospect. Have the meeting and then tailor it. And so 30 minutes in, he goes, okay, so I get what you do. Really good job. I assume you're small. Do you have any statuses? And she goes, well, yeah, we're woman owned, we're 8A, etc. And he looks at her and he goes, he leans forward, he goes, why didn't you tell me that to begin with? Don't you know that we have percentage requirements? We have to do business with companies like yours. And her answer was, That is not who we are. And that is not the value that we provide. You can steal this. We have lots of clients that use this. And this senior contracting officer leaned back in his chair and he said, I think that's probably one of the best responses I have ever heard. And he looked at her, tilted his head, and he took her into the back office, introduced her to 3 of his contracting officers, and within 90 days, she had 2 contracts. It's not what you learn, it's how you apply it, okay? Now, we talked briefly about who buys what you sell, okay? I'm gonna do this very high level, very fast. 19 is still not out, go figure, that's fairly normal for the government, so we'll look at 17 and 18. Take a look at this. For 2018, if it's green, those agencies hit their goals. If it's red, they didn't. A lot of people will say, well, Josh, you know, a lot of consultants out there will say, hey, find out where they are. You know, if it's August or early September and they haven't hit their, you know, their percentages, well, you need to target them. And it's so crazy. It's the opposite, because agencies that year over year don't hit their numbers, the reason why they don't hit their numbers is it's one reason, because senior management doesn't care. It truly is that simple. It is either a priority to hit those numbers or it's not. Okay, there's no accidents here. They have to report to the SBA. So at a high level, you want to know if they're hitting. Now, if you look at, you know, some of these numbers, like look at 8A for DOD, the third one down, and you see where it's 3.4%. They didn't hit their 5% for 8A. Folks, that's tens of billions of dollars. That 3.4% is tens of billions of dollars. So don't say, oh, I'm not going to target DOD if I'm 8A, I'm minority or socially disadvantaged, but I want you to see the pieces here, okay? The other part of it, and then here, this was for 18, 19's not out yet, but you know, you want to look for your status and see how these agencies are how they're doing. Now, if you want all of these spreadsheets, they're all free. It's in our, it's in one of our blogs. Just go to rsmfederal.com/blog and you can download these, okay? Now, propensity. I'm not going to go through the full thing here. I'm going to just give you a quick one over the world because I'm going to be publishing this in the next 2 weeks on LinkedIn, showing you how to do it. USAspending.gov. A lot of people say, okay, I can use USA Spending or I can use SAM for past contract data to find out who buys what I sell and how much do they buy and how often do they buy it. The difference with USA Spending is that they capture subcontract data, okay? SAM doesn't have that. I don't know what the percentage is. I think it's probably 50% or less. But there are a lot of companies that don't have any prime contracts, but they've subbed, and you'll actually find them in USA Spend. So as you're researching potential teaming partners, don't just look in SAM. Also look in USA Spend because they also have some contract data. Now, real quick, there was this construction company. They said, Josh, 3 years. We have 13 NAICS codes. And I researched it, and there were 90,000 contract actions over the last 3 years. And so I go into the new SAM environment, click contract data, right? And you'll get onesie twosies. You know, you really can't do anything with this. However, if you go to the data bank, guys, gals, this is why I gave you the slides. All right, so make sure you download them. If you log in, go to the data bank, go to ad hoc, and go to award IDV, brings up this screen, okay? Now, setting this up will take you an hour. I'm not exaggerating, it'll take you an hour. When you connect with me on LinkedIn, when you get all of this in the next couple of weeks, there'll be cheat sheets of how you set all this up, okay? And once you do all this, you get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of fields of data. So you need to understand pivot tables. That's a part of my thing I'm going to release in 2 weeks as well. So if you don't know pivot tables, don't worry about it. We'll teach you. This is what a pivot table looks like. And at a high level, for those 13 NAICS codes, we immediately saw, right? Hey, here's which NAICS codes are making money. We saw which agencies have the preponderance of spend for what you sell. We see the product service codes, right? By the way, let me go off on a quick tangent. For those of you that are looking for opportunities in SAM or your bid matching system, whatever it may be, some industries, the PSE codes are much stronger than using the NAICS codes. Let me say that again. PSE codes, product service codes, are more granular. They're more granular. So if you're having trouble, if you're getting dozens and dozens of opportunities in your search and you're reviewing them, you're going, man, you know, like 75% of these, it's really not what I sell. And I'm getting tired of reviewing all of these. It's taking a lot of my time. You should seriously look at PSE codes. So instead of doing a NAICS code with some keyword, do a PSE code and keyword, okay? You know, there's so much more than this. I mean, there's 100 fields of data that I use, but you can see the type of contract, how is it competed? Hey, maybe you wanna know place of performance in what state, you know, in your state, what you should be looking at, right? Now, we are going to, again, just to come full circle, next 2 weeks, I'm going to release an updated on-demand webinar. I'll put a link on LinkedIn that shows you how to use those systems and get all that information, okay? It is impossible for any of you from a hybrid sales strategy, right? You have your 3 strategic targets and then your tactical opportunities, you're bidding in SAM. How do you think you identify those 3 strategic? That's what I just went through. So you must do this before you build your sales strategy. So now we're going to go into probably the most popular slide I've ever created in my 13 years of running the company. And it's called the prospecting methods. These fall into three methods. You have your weak methods, your strong methods, and your core. Let's talk weak. Your government systems, SAM, DIBS if you are product, right? EMAL if you're product. EBI or EMAL, yeah, EBI if you have a schedule. The exclamation point is for me to make the point to you that if that's all you're doing, i.e. you're spending 80% of your time in the acquisition phase, right? You should be pre-acquisition, right? Building relationships. You're not going to win a lot. So bid matching services, okay? Those go hand in hand with the government systems. If that's all you're doing, it's pretty weak, guys. You're not going to win a lot of stuff. And I'm not guessing, this is a fact. Again, why do you think 80 or 50% of companies don't, of 8As and small business and woman-owned, why do you think they don't succeed? Because that's all they do, okay? If all you're focused on are the RFQs, RFPs, or invitations for bidding, whatever, again, that's weak. Marketing and advertising, okay? There are only 4 key things you need for marketing in the federal space. You need a business card. You need a government landing page on your website. i.e. I see the word government in your top navigation. You need a CAPE statement, and you need a document that's called a, I'm drawing a blank. I'll come back to it. It's for teaming. But that's it. Don't pay to be on billboards. Don't pay for, there's a lot of companies. They say Florida is a sunny place with a lot of shady characters. Florida has some very interesting business laws that shield some of the unethical, okay? And so there are a lot of companies down there that go, hey, we are putting together this contractor's yellow pages, and for $800, $2,500, $8,000, we'll put you in. And we're going to send that book, huge book, 2.5-inch book, to all the contracting officers in the world, okay? I mean, all the U.S. contracting officers overseas in the United States. And here's the thing, they will. But you need to understand that the government does everything digitally. They're going to throw those away as soon as they get them. Don't waste your money on that stuff. It's weak, okay? Government job openings, oh, gee, they're looking for this type of job, therefore we can try to sell our service. That doesn't work. Social media, the only social media for government is LinkedIn. Somewhere between 60 and 70%. All of us differ on our percentages. I don't know what it is, but it's very high. 60, 70% of government employees use LinkedIn. Holy smoke. So let me go off down into a rabbit hole. And you go, Josh, I don't know who to contact at the Department of the Interior. Go on LinkedIn. Find somebody that has a job description similar to what you're looking for. Ask them a question. Hey, who runs this? And then you find out who that other person is. Guess what? You've got a warm referral. Now when Mike said, hey, you need to talk to Mary. And you reach out to Mary and go, hey, Mary, this is Josh Frank with RSM. And Mike recommended that we connect based on the value we provide, ... Oh, Mike told you to talk to me. You should never cold call with the government. You have the resources, right? Government directories, don't pay for those. Government directories these are all the contracting officers, all the decision makers. Guess what? You don't need the contact information for the 3-star general or for the director of the agency, okay? Most of the folks most of the contracting officers you would deal with aren't in those directories. And then finally, the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. This is a powerful tool, okay? It's under the week because if that's all you do, it's not going to do you much. But a lot of companies use FOIAs. Let's say you can't find, there's a recompete coming up. The contract's been around for 5 years. You want a copy of the old RFP and you can't get it, and the contracting officer won't give it to you, okay? Do a Freedom of Information Act. Send it to the FOIA officer for that agency and say, I need the RFP that went with contract, SP 11356. Now, the most important thing I can tell you on FOIAs. FOIAs are a very important sales tool, okay? They're not used a lot by small business. Mid-sized and large companies use them all the time. The most important thing I can tell you about FOIAs, never submit it in your own name. Let me say it again. Never submit a FOIA under your own company name, because there is one thing that is not funded by the government, and that is the time spent responding to FOIAs. They're human beings. The potential for getting blackballed is definitely there. All right. Strong, PTACs, SBDCs, VBOX, all the assistance centers, right? Take advantage of them. SAM, USA Spend for contract data. OSBP, Office Small Business Programs, that's the Department of Defense, and Office Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. These are all just the small business offices for the agencies, Okay. Trade shows. Yeah, I know. What's a trade show? When COVID's over, trade shows will come back, I'm guessing 2021, but very strong. Agency forecasts. A lot of you have been told, hey, go look at the forecast. Folks, the reason why agencies and military commands do forecasts is because they've been congressionally mandated to do so. Okay? The majority of them are not going to provide you with any value. Now, some companies get a lot of value from them. So based on your 3 strategic targets, go look at the forecasts for those agencies or commands. And if you look through and go, there's nothing of value here, then you're done. Move on, okay? Professional associations. If you're technology, your NDIA or your AFCEA. If you're construction, architecture, engineering, your SAME, Society of American Military Engineers. So for whatever it is you sell, see if there's a professional association, okay? Companies make, this is probably one of the most important on the strong, okay? Meetings with incumbents, sometimes, and obviously your network. Now, you look at the weak and the strong, and you go, yeah, that's everything I'm doing, right? But if that's all you do, you're not going to win a contract. You're unlikely to win a contract. There are 3 core. A strong teaming strategy. 90% of companies win their first 3 or 4 contracts as a subcontractor. And even if you're an established government contractor, a strong pipeline, strong teaming strategy will increase the number of opportunities by 400%. Okay? Why? Well, because you're working with a lot of other companies, they're bringing opportunities to you. Oh, by the way, if you subcontract on 5 opportunities, guess who writes the proposal or the bid? Not you. That's awesome, right? Number 2, government meetings. Get away from your computer, okay? Talk to them, program managers, contract officers. Number 3, focus pre-acquisition. Respond to source of thoughts, make calls, etc. Now, when you look at all of these together, this is how they all feed into one another. So you still need to use SAM. You still need a good bid matching system. You need to respond to RFPs and RFQs and go to trade shows and use SAM and do all that pivot table work. But they all funnel into those 3. If you do these 3, you will, and you do them correctly with the right tactics and strategies, you will win contracts, okay? You will win contracts. Now, I'm going to skip, I'll do it really quick. No, I'm going to skip this because I want to get to some Q&A. Bottom line, anytime you team with a company, see, I'm not skipping it. Call the government first. Collect some information, then talk to your teaming partner. So what did we learn today? Common challenges, misperceptions, acquisition versus pre, right? You need to focus pre. We talked some differentiation and the importance of value. We talked high-level propensity, right? The systems you use and the prospecting methods, right? And where you really need to focus if you really want to win contracts, okay? So before I turn it back over to Catherine and some Q&A, let me close with this. First, 4 items. 1, the Insider's Guide. It is the #1 bestseller on Amazon for government contractors, for folks getting into the market, okay? I'm gonna beg right now. Getting reviews is like pulling teeth. If you get the book and you like it, and I'm gonna do something I'm not supposed to do. Amazon doesn't like doing quid pro quo. If you get the book, you leave a review, and you send me a note on Amazon, say, hey, I left you a review. I'll give you some time. Well, I'll have a call with you and talk about what you're trying to do. Okay. Number 2, if you're a podcast groupie, we've got one of the top podcasts in the nation called Game Changers, and we interview experts on all subjects that involve government contracting. 3, federal access. Okay, it's a knowledge base. free. There's about a dozen items in there that you can download. If you want more, you can look at it. And number 4, if you're not taking advantage of your PTAC, you need to take advantage of them to ensure you're educating yourself as best you can, okay? My email at the top, contact@rsmfederal.com. If you want the pipeline calculator that I talked about, send me a note there. And again, connect with me on LinkedIn. So with that, thank you everyone for coming today. I hope you learned something. And Catherine, I'm going to turn it back over to you for some Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Josh. So I have a question from Dean. What is the best place to look for GSA OASIS spending?
Ha! That is a great, the first question stumps me. Okay, because it's GSA, there is a, I just saw it, there's a dashboard. Do me a favor and Google GSA contract dashboard. If you can't find it, after, not 30 seconds, but if you can't find it after, 30 minutes or so looking for that, send me an email. Because I was just talking with my business partner about those dashboards. They're new. It's really cool, these dashboards for various GWACs and other contracts. So that's the best answer I can give you today.
Okay, thanks, Josh. I'm waiting. We don't have any other questions right now.
No other questions.
Give people a few more moments.
You betcha. I think it's the least amount of questions we've ever had, Catherine.
I think so. I just Shanna just said they bought your book, so there's that.
All right, well, Shannon, you get no free time with me unless you leave a review. Promise me you're going to leave a review.
Okay, I have a question from Jan.
Okay.
Just starting into government area with National Lab. I got invited to an RFI, which I participated in, but the full RFP requires 5 past jobs. So how do I get started?
So, there's so many questions I could ask on that, and we don't have time for all of them. Is it going to be a small business set aside? You were invited. Let's say, for example, you were invited, you responded to the RFI, you responded as if you were going to prime. RFP comes out and it says you got to have 5 past performances. It's required by the prime. First question, do you have any past performance on the commercial side? Okay. If the answer is yes, you use those. If the answer is no, then my question would be, do you personally or any employee in the company have, if there are employees, have any past performance? There's nothing wrong with you using your individual past performance. I mean, how do you think entrepreneurs become small business owners, become successful large companies? Okay. If none of that is viable, then you need to ask the contracting officer for a list of all the companies that responded to the RFI and explain to them why you're asking, and say, because we don't have 5 past performance, so I want to subcontract on another team. So at least at a minimum, you get a piece of that pie. Okay. I'm sure you have a lot of other questions. You know what? If you can get some in here now, great. Otherwise, send me an email.
Okay, thank you. Dean is asking your opinion on how you're finding the new beta.sam. Is it working correctly for you? And what's your opinion on that?
So I am incredibly impressed with the new beta SAM. Okay. Now, there's about 20 bugs that drive me up the wall. Okay. There are definitely major issues with the new SAM. However, if you know how to use it, okay, and you know the tricks, it is a phenomenally strong system. I am very rare in the market, okay, Dean? Most of my colleagues are screaming bloody murder, but I posted a comment on LinkedIn that had a lot of folks talking about the new beta SAM. And I posted a comment and nobody commented after. It was a long drawn out look. Everyone complaining, it's simply a level of understanding how to use the system. Now, Dean and everybody else, I will tell you, that what I talked about earlier about, in about 2 weeks, I'm going to have this on-demand web session recorded, connect with me on LinkedIn so you get a copy. It's going to show you everything I've learned and how to, because here's the thing, understanding how to use the system won't do you any good unless you also understand what questions to ask and how to move between all the data, because it's never as simple as I'm looking for this, I do a quick search and there it is. No, it's always multiple step, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Again, connect with me on LinkedIn. So you can get that free link somewhere down the road. So Dean,
okay, great, thank you.
So Dean, I like the new beta SAM. Yes, it's got its problems, but as a SME in this industry, I really like it.
Okay, and Dean, you can also reach out to your local PTAC
yeah, I'm sorry.
For some assistance on that too. We have been training and getting used to that system. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Catherine. Hey, Catherine, I'm sorry. That's a really good point. That's one of the missions of the PTAC as well. So if you have trouble with any of these systems, you start with the PTAC.
Great, thank you. So I have a pretty specific question from Kelly. She has a new alternative to a toolbox. Innovation aside, so I'm guessing grants, she has no government sales. I'm going to look at partnering with a hand tool company who already sells to the government. How do I investigate them with the government prior to deciding to partner with them?
Great question. So a couple of things. I'm gonna spit this out really fast, okay? Number one, make sure they're registered in SAM. They should be, but check them out. What are their primary NAICS codes? What are their primary PSE codes? Go into SAM's data bank. That's for all the past contract data. Get their DUNS number. Look up contracts by DUNS number. How many sales do they have, right? The odds are they're heavily vested in DIBS, DLA's Internet Bid Board system. Go into DIBS, search by their cage code. Not their DUNS number, their cage code. See what kind of stuff is out there, okay? There's a lot, doing due diligence on another company is fairly darn easy. You just have to have someone like me say, hey, these are the kinds of things you need to do. I'd look at their website. What kind of government landing page do they have, right? And then it's going to come down to your gut. You're going to have to talk with them, right? You're going to have a plan. Part of your plan may be, hey, listen, we want you to be a distributor for our toolbox, okay? And we would like you, and do they have a GSA schedule? They probably do, maybe not. If they have a GSA schedule, ask them to put your toolbox on their schedule. Why? So that you can get your toolbox into GSA Advantage so buyers can see your toolbox. So there's a lot of other little pieces you can do in there, but at a high level, love the question, but search their success through these different systems.
Great, thank you, Josh. A question from McCook Services. You mentioned the importance of ghosting the competition's weaknesses. By what means would you recommend researching competing vendors and discovering those weaknesses?
Man, all right. So I take it back. Gee, Catherine, we don't have a lot of questions today. Not only do we have questions, we have really good questions.
You're right.
Ghosting the weaknesses of the competition, that goes along with ghosting your strengths, is to identify that information. You have to get out from behind your computer. You have to be talking to other government contractors, right? There may be, let's say you're trying to get into a certain agency and you go to an event or you're talking to other companies and you go, hey, oh, so you're on that site. You have one of those contracts. Oh yeah, Josh, I got one of those contracts. Really? Well, MSR Services also has a contract. Yeah, Josh. We don't work with them, but we work. We're in the same building. What have you heard about those guys? Do they do a really good job? At first I thought they did a good job, but they got a cure notice. Cure notices are bad. That means that you're doing something wrong. Government's giving you a slap on the wrist. Guess what? That's really why'd they get a cure notice? Well, because they have really good IT services or whatever service it may be. However, anytime there's an issue, it takes them like 3 days to resolve, right? Well, guess what? You can ghost that weakness as a strength in your proposal. We are well known for turning around on a dime. If there's a problem, we have a 99.9% metric of talking to senior leadership within 2 hours of that problem taking place and resolving the challenge within 24. You just took a weakness of a competitor and you just made it a strength. So most contracting officers aren't allowed to. It's against the rules for them to give you bad negative information. You can go into FAPIS, FAPPIS. This also goes to the question about the toolbox, right? Another place to look is FAPIS. Do they have any derogatory ratings, any derogatory information, right? And so, so going back to the latter question, where do you get that information? You have to build relationships. You've got to get into the market, because if you're going to be successful in government, you've got to collect market intelligence. So that's a short answer with one example.
Great, thank you, Josh. Can you repeat the name of that site? You said FAPIS. Could you spell it out again? You cut out a little bit there. Oh
yeah, no, it's too late. I'm not going to do that. So I'm kidding. FAPIS, it's either FAPPIS or I think it's FAPPIS, FAPIS. And you just type a DUNS number in and it automatically shows you if a company's gotten slapped on the wrist.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have 2 questions from Matina.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a directory to find contracting officers? Also, is it wise to send your capability statement when first reaching out to those contracting officers?
So let me do the latter question first. I wouldn't send anything to a contracting officer until I've had a discussion with them. How do you know how to position, right? Think of it from a business perspective, not a government sales, how most of us are taught, right? So don't send the CAPE statement until after you've spoken to them, because you may be able to tailor it. In terms of a list of contracting officers, start with your PTAC, okay? Many of the PTACs have lists of those contracting officers. But I will tell you this. Let's say, for example, this is so easy. Let's say, for example, you are interested in, you've done your propensity review, you've run all those millions of fields of data, you've run your pivot tables, and you go, oh, wow, it looks like the Forest Service under the Department of the Interior has a need for the type of water fountains that my company sells. And you're like, but I need to know who to call. Well, go into SAM and look for active opportunities with the Forest Service. Look through those opportunities, and what's at the bottom of every opportunity? The name and phone number, email, and sometimes address of the contracting specialist. Call them up. Hey, do you work with water fountains in the parks? National Park Service, let's say. Do you work with the water fountains, all that? Yes or no? If it's no, who's responsible for that, or what program does it fall under? Just work your way in. So in other words, don't just use SAM to find and bid opportunities. Use SAM to identify the agencies you're targeting or the commands you're targeting. Use it backwards. Great question.
Great, thank you, Josh. I believe that's it. You have some new followers on LinkedIn, so that's great. And a lot of people thanking you and saying that the information was great.
Oh, thank you, and thank you. And hey, Catherine, thank you to you, Veronica, the entire team, for allowing me to partner with you and help your folks out. Absolutely love working with you guys.
Yes, and as always, thank you for the great information and help. We have been recording this session, so if you would like a link to view this, please just email me after the webinar, and I will get that out to you as soon as I am able. So that is about it. So thank you, Josh, and hope everyone else has a great day.
All right, take care. Thanks, everyone.